go through any procedure with respect to the swatches and controls that have been placed in the drying cabinet?
Yes.
And what procedure did you have to go through?
I had to prepare the samples of the cloth swatches that I have dried overnight for final booking.
Your Honor, at this time I'd like to mark another demonstration board. It will be People's 171, and it's a board entitled Evidence Packaging Demonstration.
All right, People's 171.
Now, sir, when you went through this evidence packaging procedure, did you do this alone, or did Ms. Mazzola also assist you with this? On the 14th, rather.
Ms. Mazzola may have been present, but I'm not absolutely sure.
Okay. And directing your attention now to the board that's been marked as People's 171, does this depict most of the major steps that are involved in packaging evidence up once it's been dried?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Can we look at cell number 1 on this photograph? Okay. Sir, can you describe for us what's depicted in cell number 1?
Yes. Using a disposable pipette, I am manipulating the cloth swatches so that they will fall from the test tube onto a clean sheet of paper.
Your Honor, at this time I have another item I'd like to mark. As People's 163 F for identification. And it's some what appear to be glass pipettes.
All right, 163F.
Unfortunately, they're both taped together
We'll
with
call
the
them.
evidence tag. Is it possible for me to break the tag so we can?
Yes,
Thank you.
just as long as you describe for the record how many are there and
Well, there's 2 of them, and they're taped together with an evidence tag.
fine. Why don't you leave the evidence tag on the single?
I did.
All right, thank you.
Sir, I'm showing you what we just marked as 163F for identification. What is that?
This is a disposable glass pipette.
Okay, I'm going to give you back the little test tube that we were working with. It's 163 G for identification. And can you just show us, as if there had been a swatch in there, what manipulation is shown here on the photograph that you're doing?
Sometimes when the swatch with the stain on it dries to the side of the test tube and it sticks there. So I'll take the pipette, work the swatch free, and then turn it over onto the paper so that the swatch will fall onto the piece of paper.
What do you call the piece of paper that you're putting the swatches on, as depicted in cell 1?
And once I fold it up, it's called a bindle.
So do you always have to use a glass pipette in order to do this manipulation, or is it just necessary some of the time?
Just some of the time.
All right. And if you don't have to use the glass pipette, how would you do it?
I would turn the test tube upside down onto the paper, and sometimes it just falls right out.
And then you fold up the spindle in the way that you described.
Yes.
Now, if we could see cell 2 on this exhibit. Mr. Fung, what is depicted on cell 2 of the exhibit?
In cell 2, I am throwing away both the test tube that contained the cloth swatch and the pipette that I used to remove or manipulate the swatches within the test tube.
So when you're saying you throw it away, do you use one pipette for each sample on those instances where you have to use the pipette and then throw it away? Or is it the same pipette used throughout the whole?
It's a different pipette for each sample and control.
And all those pipettes are just thrown out?
Yes.
And the test tubes?
Yes.
Okay. Now if we could see cell 3. Sir, what does cell 3 depict?
Cell 3 depicts me folding the paper up so that the swatches are secure within that piece of paper.
Okay, so would that piece of paper be the same one that you had placed the swatches into originally as depicted on cell 1?
Yes.
And now if we could see cell 4. Sir, what does cell 4 depict?
That depicts me labeling the paper bindle.
And what do you label it with usually?
Usually, I will place my initials on it and the item number or photo ID number, whichever I have at that time.
Do you do something to distinguish between the stain and the control?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if this is a single item that we're looking at in this demonstration, do you put the stains in one bindle, and then what do you do with the controls?
With the controls, I will repeat the same procedure starting from number 1 and repeat the same procedures, only I will label the paper bindle with a C.
Okay, so in other words, you're going through all the steps with the stain, and then you're going through all the steps again with the control?
Yes.
Right. Now, if we could see cell 5. What is depicted in cell 5?
Cell 5 shows me placing both the bindles in a coin envelope and placing tape over the flap so that the item is secure.
And what coin envelope is this? Is this a new coin envelope?
Generally, it's the same coin envelope used from the very start when the plastic bags were placed in them.
So in other words, it's the same coin envelope that you used at the scene and then in the drawing process and then again in the evidence packaging process?
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fung. You may resume. Stand. And as what we just went through the drawing process that was used in this case for the items of evidence that were collected on the 13th and then also on the 3rd of July.
Yes.
All right. Now, later that morning, the morning of the 14th, did you have a conversation with any other laboratory personnel regarding tests to be performed on the evidence that you had collected at Rockingham and Bundy?
Yes.
Who was involved in that conversation?
Criminalist Yamauchi and criminalist Greg Matheson.
Who is Greg Matheson?
Mr. Matheson is, or was at that time, the supervisor of serology. He is now a chief forensic chemist.
And what about Mr. Yamauchi? What was his position in the laboratory at the time?
Mr. Yamauchi is a criminalist assigned to the serology unit.
Do you recall where physically this conversation took place in the laboratory? Or did it take place in more than one place?
I'm not exactly sure where it took place.
Okay. Now, during this conversation, was a determination made as to what items were going to be tested on that particular day by Mr. Yamauchi?
It was a group consensus, and we all came to the conclusions as to what items would be tested.
And the three of you were the only participants in that discussion?
Yes.
All right. Now, which items, if any, did, excuse me, let me ask another question first. Did you see Mr. Yamauchi sampling some items of the evidence that morning?
I remember him sampling evidence, but I don't recall on which day it was.
Okay. And did you make a notation in your report as to what items were handed over to Mr. Yamauchi on the 13th for the purposes, excuse me, on the 14th for the purposes of testing?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us which page you're going to have to refer to in order to give us that information?
There is a page, it doesn't have a date or anything on it. Well, it does have one date on it, 6/14/94, and the top of it is labeled field notes.
Okay. What items did you give to Mr. Yamauchi? And if you will, can you give us the item numbers as well as the photo numbers?
The items I gave to Criminalist Yamauchi, or the items that Criminalist Yamauchi sampled that day were item 941, which was photo ID number 106. Item 42, which was photo ID number 107. Item 47, which was photo ID number 112. Item 48, which is photo ID number 113. Item 49, photo ID number 114. Item 50, photo ID number 115, that's 115. And item 52, which was photo ID number 117.
Now, do you recall why it was that you decided to give him item 41 and 42? I think those were the reference samples that you testified to yesterday.
Those were given to him for the testing procedure because we had not yet obtained reference samples from the coroner's office.
You mean from the victims?
Yes.
Right. So for what purpose then would you be giving him, if you can clarify, 41 and 42?
41 and 42 were given to him so that he could identify what types the victims were and determine if any additional bloodstains found at the crime scene were from a third party or
And
more.
did you say that was because you did not have the samples from the coroner yet representing Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown?
Not at that time.
Okay. Now, I know we talked about this a little yesterday, but did you say that these items were taken as reference samples at the time that they were collected?
Yes.
And why is it, if you know you're going to get blood eventually from the coroner, why would you bother taking a reference sample at the scene?
There are times when the reference samples obtained from the coroners are somewhat degraded, and many times the blood at the scene, which has been able to dry quickly, is a better sample, or yes, a better sample of the victim's blood types.
What does drying quickly have to do with it?
When blood, or for any matter, biological evidence is in a wet state, it will degrade faster than when it is dry.
And with respect to item 42, the item that was collected at the base of the first set of stairs, what was the condition of that pool of blood in the area where it was collected from?
The pool was somewhat tacky. It was somewhat wet still. It was not completely dry.
Okay. At the time that it was collected?
Yes.
Now, at approximately 10:30 or so in the morning of the 14th, did you go to some other location for the purposes of collecting evidence?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was at the LAPD print shed.
And where is the LAPD print shed located?
That would be 151 North San Pedro Street.
So it's in downtown Los Angeles?
It's across the street from Parker Center.
All right. When you went to that location, did you have to get into the print shed or was it already opened?
I unlocked it.
How did you unlock it?
I had a key.
All right. And what did you see in the print shed when you unlocked it?
There was a white Bronco in the print shed.
Have you seen that white Bronco before?
Yes.
And where had you seen it before?
I had seen it the day before at 360 North Rockingham.
What was the license plate of that vehicle, Mr. Fung?
Referring to my vehicle search checklist, that would be 3, C as in Charles, W as in William, Z as in zebra, 788.
When you got into the print shed and saw the vehicle, did you try to get in somehow?
I had to, or a detective from Burglary Auto Division was requested to help us unlock the door.
Did you have a key to the vehicle at that time?
No.
It was locked when you first saw it?
Yes.
Was it also locked at the scene when you'd seen it on the 13th?
Yes.
All right. And how was it that this detective helped you get in the vehicle?
He had a device which is known as a Slim Jim, and he was able to unlock the car door.
All right. Now, when you were at this location, did you go alone or was another criminalist with you?
Criminalist Mazzola was with me.
Did you collect some stains from the Bronco on this date, the 14th?
Yes, I did.
And when you collected those, did you do that personally or did Ms. Mazzola also collect some stains?
I collected them personally.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to mark as my next exhibit a board that says Bronco board, I believe, as 172 for identification.
172, Bronco board.
Before we get into the board, I just wanted to ask you a couple other questions. When you got to the print shed, this was on the 14th,
June 14th, yes.
and that was that the day that the detective opened up the locked Bronco with the Slim Jim?
Yes.
Okay. Now, have you had the opportunity to look at the board that we've just put up, People's 172 for identification, entitled Bronco Evidence?
Yes.
All right. And does this depict various items of evidence that you collected on the 14th?
Yes.
Does it also depict some items of evidence that were collected later on by someone other than yourself?
Yes, it does.
perhaps we'll just go around clockwise, starting with the photo that contains item 34. You don't. Okay. Fortunately, we're not going to be able to put it up there, but directing your attention, sir, to item 34 for identification. I mean, item 34 with the card. What does that depict?
That depicts a stain which was next to the card. You see it right here.
Is that on the inside of the car?
Yes, it is. It's on the driver wall.
All right. And does the call-out line that has line 34 on it depict the general location of that stain?
Yes.
It would be on a portion that we can't see on the sketch.
Yes.
All right. I'm not sure that all the jurors can see the board, Your Honor. Perhaps we can just readjust it a little bit. Your Honor, perhaps we could move this in a fashion that's a little bit more centered with the court's permission. Okay. Now, sir, directing your attention to the cell that has the call-out line number 23 on it. What is portrayed in that call-out line and the photo?
In the photograph, there is a red stain in the handle well.
Okay. And does the call-out line depict the general vicinity of that stain?
Yes.
Now, with respect to these two stains, 34 and 23, how did you collect them? What technique did you use?
Those were collected using the same method previously demonstrated.
The cloth swatch technique?
Yes.
Right. Now, directing your attention to what's been marked here with the photograph 33 and the call-out line, what does that show?
I'll refer to my notes. .33 depicts the driver floor carpet.
So it's the carpet itself.
Yes.
And what did you do to collect that?
I cut it out of the vehicle.
All right. Were there stains on that were apparent to you when you looked at it on the 14th?
Yes.
All right. Now, moving to the call-out line that's number 24 and the corresponding photograph, what's depicted there?
This depicts a stain that was on the instrument panel. And its relative location is depicted by the call-out.
Okay. What technique was used to collect that stain?
The cloth swatch method was used.
And 33, is that another photograph that appears to depict the area of the carpet?
Yes.
All right. And now, moving next to 33 with the call-out line number 29. What does that photograph and call-out line depict?
29 was a stain removed from the 7 o'clock position of the steering wheel.
What technique was used?
The cloth swatch method.
And now directing your attention to the photograph that depicts both 31 and 30 and the call-out lines. What is shown there?
There are 2 stains on the center console, and they're depicted and shown by the call-out lines.
Now, did you remove the console itself from the vehicle, or was that done by someone else?
That was done by somebody else.
And looking at the photograph that's depicted at the bottom of the chart on the right-hand side that has numbers 304, 305, and 306 in it, did you put those numbers there, or did someone else do it?
Somebody else did that.
Do you recognize the item that's portrayed in that photograph?
The center console?
Yeah.
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
The same general stains are present.
All right. Does that look the same as it did on the 14th, with the exception that it's been removed from the vehicle?
Generally, yes.
And also the photograph next to that depicts 293. Is that one that you did, or is that something that happened at a later time?
That happened at a later time.
Okay, and finally, the photograph next to it showing the call-out line number 25.
25 was a, I'll check my notes again. Number 25 was fibers with red stains on the carpet.
What technique did you use to collect those stains?
I cut the fibers that had the stains on them from the carpet.
Okay. And does the call-out line there depict generally the location in the carpet where it was found?
Yes.
Your Honor, perhaps we might be able to move this. I'm finished with it now, but just so the jurors could see somehow.
All right, Mr. Fairtlow, you want to show 1492, the exhibit? Also, Mr. Fairtlow, would you briefly show it to our audience? All right, we'll take our recess for the lunch hour. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves. Don't form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to talk to you about the case. Do not conduct any deliberations till the matter has been submitted to you. See you back here at 1:30. Mr. Fung, you may step down. You're ordered to return 1:30. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Just stand, please. All right, let the record reflect we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Almost an on-time start. All right, Mr. Dennis Fung is still on the witness stand undergoing direct examination by Mr. Goldberg. Good afternoon again, Mr. Fung.
Good afternoon.
You're reminded you are still under oath, sir. Mr. Goldberg, you may continue with your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. So we were talking about the search of the Bronco when we left off. Did you recover any physical items of evidence in the Bronco other than the stains that you just referred to in the way of clothing?
Yes.
What was that?
I collected a cap.
Where was the cap collected from?
The cap was recovered from the driver floorboard.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like the witness to take another look at People's 164 for identification. It was the box. May I approach the witness?
Yes, you may.
Sir, showing you 164 for identification. Could you unseal that and describe what you're doing for the record?
Cutting along the bottom edge of the box. And through the tape. Within the package are several bags. The first one I'm pulling up is item number 27.
Okay, and is that the bag into which you placed the cap?
Yes, it is.
And you also put the DR number in our case on there?
Yes.
All right. Sir, perhaps you could unseal people's 160, perhaps we can mark that as 164C, Your Honor, just so the record is clear.
All right, 164C will be the paper bag marked as item number 27.
And could we mark the glove 164A and the blue bag 164B?
All right, Mrs. Robertson, do you have that? All right, thank you.
I'm cutting along the seal. Unfolding the bag. And within the bag is a cap.
And is that what you collected?
Yes.
Okay, can you now replace the item describing what you're doing for the record?
I'm placing the cap back in the bag and folding the bag up and placing the cap back into the box.
Now, after you'd collected the various items of evidence from the Bronco, where did you go?
After collecting the items of evidence from the Bronco, I returned to the crime lab.
With items that you had collected?
Yes.
And was the Bronco secure when you left?
The Bronco was left in the print shed, and the print shed was locked.
Okay. When you went back to the crime lab with the items, did you go about processing them in terms of the drawing process that you have previously described in your testimony?
Yes.
Now, on this particular occasion, do you remember what role, if any, Andrea Mazzola played in terms of the drawing process?
She removed some of the samples from the plastic bags and placed them in the test tubes to dry.
Using the technique that you had described, or do you recall whether she used a different technique?
She used the same technique.
All right. And what was done with the evidence after it had been placed into the bags, had been placed to the test tubes to dry?
After being placed in the test tubes to dry, they were placed in the drying cabinet within the evidence processing room.
All right. Now, directing your attention to the afternoon of June the 14th, after you came back and did this processing with the Bronco evidence, did you remain at Piper Tech?
Yes, I did.
And what were you doing there that afternoon?
I continued to write my property reports from the previous 3 scenes that I had done.
Now, with respect to the, excuse me. With respect to the vial of blood that you had received from Detective Van Adder, was a property number assigned to that vial of blood?
Yes.
And who assigned that? Was that done by you?
Yes,
or
it
by-
was. Yes, it was.
All right. And can you describe for us how that process occurred of assigning the number to the vial of blood?
I had items of evidence numbered up through 16. I had received the vial of blood at Rockingham the afternoon before, and I decided to make that item number 17.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to mark as People's next in order 173, a Xerox copy of laboratory note L115, and it has numbers 17, 18, excuse me, L15 was the laboratory note. And it has items 17, 18, and 19 listed.
I would like the original of that, which I believe is in court, marked as well. He can use the copy, but I'd like the original marked as a separate item.
Well, he's entitled to run his own case. If he wants to use a Xerox copy, he can use a Xerox copy for this purpose. If you want to use the original for cross-examination, you're entitled to do so. Proceed. Be marked as 173.
Your Honor, may I put this up on the Elmo?
Yes.
Sir, we're going to show you what's been marked as People's 173 for identification. Do you recognize this page?
Yes.
And who wrote that out?
That was written by Criminalist Mazzola.
Okay. And did she write that out at someone's direction? Or did she do it on her own? Did you tell her to, or did she do it on her own?
I believe she,
The objection.
I don't think he has a proper foundation yet with respect to personal knowledge of...
Rephrase the question.
Did you tell her to?
no.
All right. And when was the first time you saw this document?
I saw it while I was writing my property report.
Okay. And what did you do when you saw this document?
I had her transcribe the information onto an evidence collection report.
Okay, this was just written on a blank sheet of paper?
Yes.
And do you have standard forms that are used in the ordinary course of the crime laboratory's business for the purposes of writing out items of evidence that were obtained during a crime scene investigation?
Yes.
All right. And is the crime scene identification checklist that we saw yesterday one of those forms?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd now like to mark as People's 174 for identification. Another document, I'm going to put a 174 in the upper left-hand corner. I can't read the L number on it, but I'm showing it to counsel.
All right, 174. This is another lab note.
Yeah, and it has 18, 17, and 19 on it. Can we put that the other? Okay, now, Mr. Fung, directing your attention to 174, what is this document?
This is the evidence collection report that the information was put on or transcribed to.
When you say the information, are you talking about the information from the last document we saw, 173?
Yes,
And who put it on this form?
that was a combination of myself and Ms. Mazzola.
Okay, and on this form, what was the number that was assigned initially to the blood vial that had been received from Detective Van Adder?
Initially, the item number was 18.
And that was what Ms. Mazzola had put on the other form?
Yes.
And what was item number 17?
Item 17 was a pair of tennis shoes.
Okay. Now, when Colin Yamauchi collected his evidence earlier in the morning of the 14th, do you recall whether he was given a number as to the reference sample of the defendant's blood?
I don't recall.
Oh, roll.
I don't recall.
All right. Now, at some point, did you decide to reassign numbers to these, to the tube?
Yes.
And why did you make that decision?
I wanted to keep the items in a chronological order and reduce less paperwork for myself.
Okay. Now, why would it reduce the paperwork?
If the blood had remained item number 18, I would have had to create 3 additional property report face sheets.
Okay. Now, with the pair of sneakers on the previous document that we saw was labeled item 17. Is that correct?
Yes.
And which did you receive, and the blood 18?
Yes.
Which did you receive first, the blood or the pair of sneakers?
I received the blood vial first.
All right. And do you try generally to keep items in chronological order?
Generally, yes.
Okay. In order to do that, did you need to reassign those numbers?
Yes.
Now, I wanted to follow up on this other question that you said about reducing the paperwork. What is the type of paperwork that you would be reducing?
Property report.
Your Honor, may I mark as People's 175 for identification? A property report that has the date of, well, rather than identifying by date, I'll do it by number. It's number 12 through 17. And I have another property report, which I'd like marked as People's 176, that has number 18 and 19 on it.
All right, so mark 175, 176.
Okay. Sir, looking at this document, do you recognize this?
Yes, I do.
And who filled that out?
I filled it out.
And is number 17 way at the bottom the reference to the vial of blood?
Yes.
Okay. Now, can you explain to us with this exhibit why you would have had to fill out more paperwork if you had kept the blood vial as number 18 instead of changing it to 17?
When writing property reports, we are not allowed to skip item numbers from, for instance, going from 16 to 18. You have to have everything in sequential order. So if I wanted to make the blood 18, I would have had to stop at item number 16, created a new property report with 17 and only 17 on the next property report, create another property report with only 18 on it, and that's why I made the blood number 17.
Okay, let's take a look.
With the Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, would you please step back into the jury room? All right, it appears that this exhibit, I believe this is number 175, is the property report, reflects two items, the 15 and 16, which are the items that we just had the problems about earlier this morning. And unfortunately, the evidence presentation system is sufficient that I can, from the jury box, read what items 15 and 16 are. And if you recall, that's what caused me to read the sanction instruction to the jury, and now the prosecution has chosen to show this to the jury again.
I see that, Your Honor, and I did not take it upon myself to redact it. I wasn't thinking about that at all. And Mr. Scheck saw the document before we put it up, and he did not say anything to me.
Well, I don't know that it's Mr. Scheck's obligation
It's not a question of obligations. It's a question of there was no objection, and this is a situation, I mean, what were they trying to do? Wait for something to be put up in front of the jury, and then hold back, and then make an objection, and suggest that some sort of remedial action needs to be taken when Mr. Scheck saw it? And I think that if you asked him, well, why didn't you say anything? He'd say, I overlooked it too, in all probability. I mean, what I was concentrating on was item number 17. The only relevance of this document is item number 17. And that was, all my concentration was on, was item number 17 and explaining that part of this witness's testimony.
You're not making this easy, are you, Mr. Goldberg?
Well, I really don't think it's that difficult, Your Honor, in all due respect to the court. I mean, it happened.
Oh, wait.
No
We have
objection
an
was
agreement
made.
that this item is not going to be used or mentioned. You violate that agreement. I grant the unusual remedy of instructing the jury that that should not have been done. 20 minutes after that happens, and 20 minutes into the session this afternoon, you put this up on the Elmo.
Well, everything the court has said is true. I mean, the court's recitation of the facts are correct.
The first explanation is you had no idea that that had been the agreement, and the agreement had been, if this was going to be brought up again, that the defense was entitled to a de novo 1538.5 motion.
I realize that, and
And now here it is again,
because, you know, Your Honor,
in the same day.
I recognize that. You know, it is not customary, Your Honor, for attorneys to take it upon themselves to redact documents. I realize that what should have been done here, if I had caught...
Here's the problem. The court cannot supervise the preparation of each and every exhibit. Otherwise, we'd be spending a whole lot of time just looking at exhibits. And I trust the professionalism and integrity of the lawyers involved in front of me to at least cull out the things that aren't going to be controversial. This clearly is.
You're right. And I did not take a second look at this before I used it this afternoon after the court's ruling. I mean, I just didn't think about it.
It wasn't the court's ruling. That was our agreement months ago.
Well, I meant the ruling earlier this morning. And Mr. Scheck, who saw it, did not say anything to me.
Mr. Scheck, any comment?
I think the facts speak for themselves. I'm sure Mr. Goldberg had planned to introduce this document in regard to the matter of the transfer of the blood vial in item 17. I walked over, took a quick glance. I did not think at that moment that about the airline ticket being in that particular place. That's true, but he's trying his case. It didn't occur to me till we sat down, took a look at the monitor, and I said, oh my God, there it is. I don't know what to say about that other than I don't want to try his case for him, and I suppose he has to look at the items and redact them as appropriate. The real dilemma that I actually have at this moment, and I don't know if the court wants to address it, is the issue of remedy. So whenever you want to... But that's the only comment I can make on what he said.
Well, what remedy do you seek?
We need a moment to discuss that. Your Honor, in terms of the remedy, as indicated by the initial instruction that Dean Ullman proffered to the court, our concern is really with, at this point, the prosecution's violating its agreements. At this stage, what we're concerned about is it now begins to look as though we're trying to hide these items when there was an agreement they wouldn't be introduced, and now in re-instructing them, all of a sudden the importance of this may take on greater weight in the jury's mind than it really ought to in terms of the defense trying to hide something from them, when that's not really what's going on here. What's going on here is the prosecution now twice has violated its agreements. In fact, I think in the first instruction that Dean Ullman proffered to the court, we didn't even necessarily ask for a remedy, disregard everything you've heard about that, because we do have that concern that it's going to look like we're trying to hide something from the jury. We never should have been in this dilemma in the first place. So the remedy is that we'd like you to instruct the jury that the prosecution has again violated its agreement with respect to proffering these items of evidence and violated the court's order.
Mr. Goldberg?
Well, Your Honor, the problem with these arguments is that this seems like an incredible placement of form over substance. I mean, don't you start your analysis by asking yourself, what is the prejudice here? And Your Honor may recall that one of the first questions that I posed, rhetorical questions when we were arguing this earlier, to the defense was, can they legitimately claim in good faith that this is something that is prejudicial to them, or that this is something that they might not even have intended to introduce anyway? I mean, based on what the jury has heard
Mr. Goldberg, were I in your shoes, I would be thinking about adopting an attitude that the court would be receptive to hearing.
I'm just
And
trying.
rather than cast the problem and the burden upon the other side, opposing counsel, I would be contemplating how best to salvage my credibility before the court. And I would be thinking about that I couldn't say mea culpa too many times in this situation, were I in your shoes.
I did. I said it the first time. I'll say it again, and I said during my argument, it wasn't the first time a mistake was made by the prosecution, by me, by defense counsel. It won't be the last time. I just didn't know how soon it was going to occur.
Well,
But, you know,
the fact that it occurred again so quickly is perhaps not surprising, but what's incredible, in the true sense of the word incredible, is that it would happen on the same subject matter.
Well, what I would ask the court to do, I can make a representation as to what happened. I can say this is a mistake. I can say it shouldn't have happened. I can say I am sorry. I can also represent to the court that this is not done intentionally. I don't know whether the court believes that or not. That's something that Your Honor has to decide. I know I haven't practiced in front of the court before, but I hope that based upon my representations and the way that I've tried to handle the legal issues, perhaps Your Honor is in a position to decide that. But aside from that issue, I would ask the court also to think about this just from a circumstantial, if you want to talk about evidence and legal analysis for a moment, think about it from a circumstantial evidence standpoint, which is maybe perhaps the only evidence that Your Honor feels that you can rely on if you don't want to accept my word.
Well,
And
Mr. Goldberg, I just have to say that if I were you, I would ask the court's permission to put up a redacted copy of this exhibit, and I would ask permission to directly say to the jury, I'm sorry, I did it again. And move on.
Well, okay, I can see, I think that the court doesn't want to hear any more argument about it. If that is the way that the court feels it should be resolved, I would agree to that. But just so that we don't have any problems.
Somehow I get the feeling it's not heartfelt.
Well, I don't know what I can do, Your Honor. It is heartfelt. I mean, I think that the court can
But Mr.
imagine
Goldberg,
being in my shoes.
Trust me, I don't mean to embarrass you by this, but you got to admit it's incredible that this could happen on the same subject twice in the same day.
I do. I admit it is
All right.
incredible. And I would still ask Your Honor to think about whether or not, because Your Honor has questioned, I think, my integrity, what possible advantage I would
I didn't say that.
conceivably imagine.
I said that I would try to salvage it were I you, and I would be concerned about it.
And I am. I mean,
All right.
what else can I do? I mean, I wish the court would think about it. I'm certainly sorry it happened. I don't know what else to say.
Can I get one of our law clerks out here, please? Can I have that, please? Is this a photocopy? Don't go away. See if you can obliterate this. I'm listening.
We've talked it over, and our problem at this point is the concern I expressed before about redacting it out, is that we fear
I
that...
can tell them it's irrelevant to the case. Give me 5 copies. Make sure that what's redacted is gone. And Mr. Goldberg, before we go too much further, please accept my apologies to you if I seem irritated. But this day has not gone well. It started off with many different arguments over many contentious items, and it's been a bad day today.
I agree with that, Your Honor.
All right. So don't take it personally. But you're not making my job any easier today. All right, Mr. Scheck, you were saying you don't want to highlight this, is what you're saying?
Yes, Your Honor. I think that if I could make the suggestion that the court should admonish the jury in any way you see fit with respect to the violations of the agreement. But at this point, it seems that we don't want to bring any more attention to that and make it seem as though there's some undue significance to it. I think the jury may think, if they're twice instructed to disregard it, they may think that there's something the defense is trying to hide, and we don't want to do that at this point. So we would just...
Use a redacted copy and leave it at that?
No, we don't want to redact the copy, Your Honor. But we want the admonishment that
Oh,
it
wait.
shouldn't have been shown. And at this point, it's of...
Well,
and
if you
just
don't want to
leave it
use a
at
redacted copy, then what?
After due consideration, what we would request of the court is, yes, a redacted copy, and add an instruction to the jury that the prosecution has broken its agreement again, and a further instruction to the jury that the items there are irrelevant.
Let me show you the redacted copy and see if you think this is too obvious. Why don't you give them both a copy? I guess we ought to white it out instead of black it out.
From here, I can tell that.
Well, you know, with word processors, you don't have whiteout anymore. All right, Mr. Goldberg, I'm going to suggest that you proceed at this point without this exhibit. Mr. Fung can testify with regards to his memory with regards to these items, refer to his own reports. And if we use this item again, number 175, it will have whiteout instead of blackout, because that's just too obvious. All right, let's have the jurors. That we have been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel again. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason for our brief recess is that the exhibit that was on the evidence display system, People's Number 175, made reference to two items that the court has previously deemed to be irrelevant and that the parties had agreed not to present to you. And that exhibit was shown to you by mistake, and you will not be shown that exhibit until it has been corrected to delete mention of those two items. I know that you were very diligent jurors, and I saw you looking up and reading the item. You are to disregard the mention as to items 15 and 16 if you wrote it down, read it, or recollect it. You are to disregard mention of those two items. Proceed. And I might add, you were not to speculate as to what those items were.
Okay, so at any rate, Mr. Fung, did you make a decision then to assign item number 17 to the blood vial?
Yes.
And did you then make a decision to assign number 18 to a different item?
Yes.
And what item was that?
That was the pair of tennis shoes I had received from Detective Lang.
Now, on this date, June the 14th, approximately how late would you say that you worked there at the Scientific Investigations Division?
Approximately 7:30.
Okay. And were you filling out your paperwork the whole time, or what were you doing?
I was filling out paperwork. I may have taken a couple breaks here and there.
Where were you filling out the paperwork? Do you know what room?
I was doing that in the evidence processing room.
That's the same room that the drawing process occurs in?
Yes.
Now, directing your attention to the date of June the 15th of 1994,
Yes.
did you go to the Scientific Investigations Division?
Yes, I did.
And is that also at Piper Tech?
Yes.
Did you receive some more evidence from another criminalist in the morning of that date?
Yes, I did.
What did you receive?
I received the victim's reference blood samples, or blood vials.
From the court that presumably came from the coroner's office.
Yes.
Who gave those to you?
Those were given to me by criminalist Yamauchi.
Okay. And on this date, did Mr. Yamauchi sample some more items at around 10 o'clock in the morning?
Sustained. Foundation.
Okay. Sir, to your knowledge, did Mr. Yamauchi sample some items?
Yes.
Where did that take place?
That occurred in the evidence processing room.
Did you make some notes regarding what Mr. Yamauchi sampled on this date?
Yes.
Do you recall whether you had a conversation with him as to what items should be sampled and tested, or how did that work?
Best of my recollection, we did discuss what items were most relevant to the issue at that time.
All right. And can you tell us, using the item numbers, which item numbers Mr. Yamauchi sampled from on this occasion?
Mr. Yamauchi sampled items 23, 34, 25, 31, 33, 12, and 14.
After those items were sampled, what were you doing for the remainder of the day?
On
The 15th.
the 15th, I processed the Bronco evidence and continued to finish property reports.
Okay. Did you return to work on the 16th?
Yes, I did.
And what were you working on at the 16th?
On the 16th, I prepared all the evidence and checked it for final booking and entered the evidence into SID property.
When you entered into SID property, was it in a sealed condition?
Yes, it was.
And by all the evidence, you mean from Rockingham, the Bronco, and Bundy?
Yes.
Sustained.
I didn't-
Rephrase the question.
Which
They
question? The last one?
compound.
The last one?
Yes.
Okay. Did that include the evidence from Bundy
Yes.
and Rockingham
Yes.
and the Bronco?
Yes.
I'd still object, because that is vague as well.
Overruled. That's as obviously as of the 15th. Jury can figure that out.
I just have one moment, Your Honor, to look at my notes. Sir, I'm not sure whether I covered this, but as to item number 18, the tennis shoes, when were those recovered?
The tennis shoes were recovered on June 14th, early in the morning.
And who did you recover them from?
According to my notes, Detective Lang.
Do you recall where that was?
That was in the serology unit in the crime lab.
Was anyone else present other than you and Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Who?
Criminalist Matheson and Criminalist Yamauchi.
Mr. Matheson, is he who you referred to previously as presently the chief forensic chemist?
Yes.
Okay. And was there also an evidence number, item number 19, that you recovered?
Yes.
When was that recovered?
That was recovered on June the 14th.
Where did you recover it from?
I removed item 19, which is hairs and fibers, from the glove in item number 9.
Did you package them up in some way?
Yes, I did.
In where?
I placed them in to the best of my recollection, a paper bindle, and put them in a coin envelope and assigned them item number 19 in their own envelope.
Yeah. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to mark another exhibit. It would be People's 177 for identification.
177?
And it's actually a series of 5 boards called LAPD Evidence Disposition Summary. Perhaps we could wait for just one moment before we put them up to see whether. Hey, we could put up one with number 6 at the top first. perhaps you could step down for a moment and take a look at this. We've put up a board that's been, Your Honor, maybe we should mark this with the court's permission, 177A.
177A, the whole board?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Fung, have you seen this board before?
Yes, I have.
And did you have the opportunity to carefully examine this board and a series of other boards just like this one?
Yes.
All right. Now, did you have an opportunity to look at the photographs in the various cells next to the names Fung and Mazzola?
Yes.
And in several instances on the other board, were there cells that just had your name in it?
Yes.
Did you also look at the cells on all the other boards?
Yes, I did.
Now, was the resolution in the photographs good enough so that you could see what was depicted in the photograph?
Yes.
All right. With respect to, let's just start with 6. I don't think we have to go through all of them. But with respect to 6, what is shown in photograph in the cell LAPD, a collected LAPD, and 6 next to Fung and Mazzola?
Up in the upper right-hand corner is the DR number. Here is the item number. And here is my initials.
What is number 6, the item depicted in the photographs?
So I'm going to refer to my notes.
Well, I mean, just, is it a coin envelope?
Yes,
or-
it is.
Okay. And is that the kind of coin envelope that you, is that the coin envelope that would have been used at one of the scenes?
Yes.
Do you have to refer to your notes to tell us which scene it was?
That scene, no, I do not need to.
Okay, which is that?
That is from the Rockingham scene.
Okay, do you need to refer to your notes to tell us where at the Rockingham scene this was collected from?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us?
That was, item number 6 was recovered from the driveway close to the Rockingham entrance.
Okay, so if you can recall back to when we were showing the first Rockingham board that we discussed yesterday, there was an item number 6. Do you
Yes.
recall that? Would this be the envelope into which you placed that item number? Item
Yes.
number 6. Right. Now, was the date that you did it June the 13th of '94?
Date I collected?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. Now, when you went through this board previous to your testimony, did you check the dates and the photograph number using your crime scene identification list, just as you did a few moments ago with number 6?
That and my property reports, yes.
Okay. And was this an accurate summary of that information?
Yes.
And the crime scene identification checklist, is that a document that's made in the ordinary course of the crime laboratory's business when you're collecting stains from a scene,
Yes.
or other evidence?
Yes.
And the property reports, are those also standard business records that are used at Los Angeles Police Department?
Yes.
Now, when you went down this particular board, did you see the packaging into which you placed the items that were collected accurately portrayed in the pictures
Yes.
next to your name, or your name and Ms. Mazzola's name?
Yes.
And did the pictures accurately portray that packaging?
Yes.
Now, how did you recognize the packaging in each instance?
In the photographs, there's either my initials or criminalist Mazzola's initials, or some other identifying characteristics such as a coroner's case number that would be unique to that item.
Did you also look for the DR numbers?
Yes.
Did you do the same thing for all the other boards in the series?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to put up the other boards, but I just need to get the witness to authenticate them. So I'm not sure whether we need to physically drag them over here or not. Was the court planning on taking its recess fairly shortly?
3 o'clock.
Okay.
Need a moment to recycle your exhibits. Go ahead.
As People's 177B, I have a similar board, and this has items 25 through 44.
All right, 177B.
Sir, do you also recognize this exhibit?
Yes.
And this was one of the other boards that you took a look at?
Yes.
Okay, and did you go through the same process that we just discussed in connection with 177A of verifying the photographs, the dates corresponding to each one of the cells
Yes.
that you collected? And was the information contained on this board true and correct?
Objection to that question, only to his initials.
Yes.
Only to
Rephrase-
what?
Rephrase.
Okay,
The information is accurate as to his participation, yes.
well,
Rephrase the question.
okay, let me ask it more specifically. Did the photograph accurately depict the packaging of the items, the various items that you collected or that Andrea Mazzola collected in your presence?
Yes.
And did the dates accurately reflect when those items were collected?
Yes.
All right. Now, let's take a look at 177C. This says 45 through 87. I'm sorry, 57. Is this another board that you looked at, Mr. Fung?
Yes, it is.
And did you go through the same procedure that you described with respect to 177A of verifying this board?
Yes.
And did the photographs in the cells under collected LAPD next to your name and/or Andrea Mazzola's name accurately reflect the packaging into which the items were placed that either you collected or were collected in your presence?
Yes.
And were the dates also accurate?
Yes.
Now, 177D. This contains item 59 through 82. Okay, now looking at this particular board, when you go down the LAPD collected column, every name here is someone else. Is that correct?
Yes.
So you did not participate in the collection of these items?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. Now let's see 177E. Sir, did you go through the same procedure with this board that you went through with 177A?
Yes,
And on this board, there are only 3 items that you collected?
yes.
And those are which item numbers?
115, 116, and 117.
And did you look at the photographs to determine whether they accurately reflect the packaging that you placed those respective items in?
Yes,
And does the date accurately reflect when you did that?
yes.
Okay, thank you. For the record, Your Honor, this was 84 through 305. Did you have occasion to go out to the location at Bundy since July the 3rd?
Yes.
And when was that you went out?
I've gone out there 3 additional times.
Did you go out there in February of this year?
Yes, I did.
For what purpose?
I went out there to take additional measurements with Special Agent Bodziak.
Yes.
Was he with the FBI?
Yes.
Do you know which division?
He's with, no, I don't know what the name of his exact division is.
But is it a scientific evidence type division?
Yes.
All right. Now, what materials did you bring with you out to the scene, if any?
We had some photographs and measuring devices.
Okay. Did you did you have photographs there that depicted the shoe prints as they existed on June the 13th?
Yes.
All right. And did you have occasion to go out again on March 25th?
Yes.
And why were you going out then?
I was out there to take even more measurements with DA personnel.
Did you recall who from the DA's office was with you?
Ms. Martinez.
The young lady behind me?
Yes.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to mark what appears to be a set of notes as People's 178 for identification.
And you've looked at them carefully.
What? Yes.
Good.
Well, I think we're finished with the yellow note today anyway, Your Honor.
Good.
Council's already seen these, but I'm just going to authenticate them with the witness. May I approach? Sir, showing you People's 178 for identification. Do you recognize that?
Yes, I do.
And what are those?
These are measurements taken of shoe prints at the Bundy scene.
Is that a compilation of various notes that you took on the 3 dates that you just mentioned?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Fung, with respect to investigating a crime scene, as we talked a lot about yesterday, is there any single right way or right formula for going about investigating a crime scene?
There are general guidelines that people follow. However, there's no single right way in any circumstance.
Is the way that you go about investigating a crime scene subject to different opinions of different forensic experts, criminalists?
Yes.
Okay. Could 2 forensic experts have different ideas about exactly what to do at a crime scene?
Yes.
And sir, is there a recognized principle in criminalistics that in every crime scene that has ever been processed, it is always possible to use hindsight to criticize the work at a later date?
Sustained.
Sir, have you heard of is there any recognized understanding within the criminalistics field regarding whether or not it is possible to process a crime scene in a way that no one could ever criticize?
Brown.
Calls for speculation.
Sustained. Leading.
It's okay, Your Honor. I don't think I have any further questions. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Good afternoon, Mr. Fung. How are you, sir?
Good afternoon.
Mr. Fung, I thought we would start with discussing the role of the criminalist. Would you agree that it is the role of the criminalist to preserve the integrity of evidence?
That is one of the roles, yes.
And that would mean that it's your job to make sure that evidence is not contaminated.
In some respects, yes.
It is not compromised or altered.
I object to the word
Vague.
compromised.
Vague.
It is not altered. by the people gathering it?
Well, I object to that because again, it's spitting.
Overruled.
In all cases?
Yes, when you get to a crime scene, you see evidence. You don't want it to be compromised in the gathering in terms of the way you originally found it. You want it to be in the same condition as much as you possibly can as you originally found it.
Compound.
Overruled.
Not in all cases. There may be some cases where it might be raining out and you would want to move the evidence to preserve it.
Right, to preserve it in the original condition as that you found it, right?
Well, it's vague.
Sustained.
But you said that sometimes it may be raining out, so you want to protect the evidence so that you can gather it in as close as possible its original condition. Isn't that what you just said?
Not exactly. You would want to preserve it to maintain its integrity and so that it would retain its value to an analysis.
Okay. And it's your job to make sure as much as possible that evidence is not corrupted.
Well, I object to the word corrupt.
Sustained.
Well, that evidence is not tampered with.
Yes.
And would you agree that it is the role of the criminalist to be careful?
Yes.
Well, I object to that. It's overbroad.
Overruled.
And that you should not be in a hurry when examining evidence at a crime scene?
Generally, yes.
And you would agree that recognition of new clues beyond what the detectives show you is important?
It can be, yes.
And you would agree that sometimes extremely important evidence is not obvious as soon as you arrive at the crime scene?
Yes.
Criminalist wants to go through a process of careful reconstruction upon arrival at the scene.
I object to the phrase reconstruction as vague.
Sustained.
Have you heard the term crime scene reconstruction?
Yes.
And that has a formal meaning, does it not?
Yes.
And what do you know it to mean?
A reconstruction is using the physical evidence at the crime scene to come up with a scenario as to what happened at that crime scene.
And so when you get to a crime scene, as much as possible, a criminalist would want to look at all the evidence and begin the process of reconstruction in an effort to find relevant clues.
Well, I object that it's compound.
Overruled. Do you understand the question?
Yes.
All right, you may answer.
Not in all cases.
Would you agree that it is a principle of crime scene contamination to first protect the scene?
Crime scene contamination?
Excuse me, crime scene investigation, to first protect the scene,
Yes.
all right? You don't want to trample or obliterate evidence.
If it can be avoided,
Don't want to contaminate the scene.
yes.
You would want to conduct a quick search for perishable evidence.
Yes.
And then you would want to retreat and approached the scene slowly and methodically.
Yes.
And you recognize I'm reading from,
Sustained.
fair enough?
Yes.
Would you agree that it is important for a criminalist not to make assumptions in approaching a scene?
Yes.
It's important not to take shortcuts.
Objection, Davis, to the shortcuts.
Sustained. Rephrase the question.
Be important not to rush to judgments.
Object, that's argumentative.
Sustained.
Would you agree that it's important for a criminalist to be accurate?
Yes.
Accurate and complete in making notes.
In making relevant notes, yes.
Accurate about the number of items that you collect.
Yes.
About the nature of the items you collect.
What do you mean by nature?
Description of the nature of the items that you collect.
Yes.
Who collected them?
In the notes?
Yes.
Not in all cases, no.
Well, you were referring before to your crime scene checklist, correct?
Yes.
And in your crime scene checklist, there are boxes, are there not?
Yes, there are.
And as you go across the page in the crime scene checklist, the boxes refer to item collected, and then next to that is by, correct?
Yes.
And that's a box where you're supposed to fill out who collected the item.
The crime scene...
Is that true?
No.
I asked him about the box.
Wait, he just said no. He's finished his answer. Proceed.
As a criminalist, you want to be accurate about where the item is collected.
Yes.
And you want to be accurate about how the item is collected. What method is used.
In the notes?
In the notes or in terms of your own recollections. You want to be accurate as to how items are collected.
As long as they're collected in a standard procedure, I don't see the need for taking notes.
Well, aren't
On
there
it.
different ways to collect various items of evidence?
Yes, there are.
And don't you think it's important to make notes about exactly which one was used on what occasion?
If it was relevant.
All right. And isn't it important, as you're processing a crime scene, to keep accurate notes about the order of collection?
I don't see where the order of collection would necessarily have to be documented, as long as you had a time frame from which you could say when they were.
Well, on your crime scene checklist, right next to the box that indicates by, there's another box that indicates time, is there not?
Yes, there is.
And the purpose of the box that indicates time is to have the criminalist write down when an item was collected.
In certain circumstances, yes.
And when you have a lot of different items, in order to minimize confusion, isn't it a good idea to write down the time of collection?
Not necessarily.
And in your judgment, when you have a lot of different items of evidence that you're processing, it's not a good idea to memorialize the order of collection?
Not unless it was going to be relevant at some later time.
Now, would you agree that it's important for a criminalist to create an accurate chain of custody?
Yes.
And could you tell us, please, what you mean by a chain of custody? What's your understanding of it?
The chain of custody is a record of when evidence leaves one person's custody and is given to another person's custody.
And the reason that it's important to keep accurate records about the chain of custody is, or one of the reasons, is to prevent samples from getting mixed up.
Well, that's not my understanding of why chain of custody is necessary.
You don't think that an accurate set of records about where an item went, who received it next, is of assistance in preventing mix-ups?
That may be a secondary,
Is that a reason?
that is one of the
Okay.
reasons.
Another reason to have an accurate chain of custody is to guard against cross-contamination of samples.
That's not my understanding of chain of custody.
You don't think chain of custody has anything to do with cross-contamination of samples?
That's not my understanding of chain of custody.
All right, is this a good point?
One more question.
One more.
And would you agree that one of the important reasons to have an accurate chain of custody is to prevent anyone from tampering with evidence?
That is a reason, yes.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our afternoon break. This will be a 15-minute recess. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case. Don't allow anybody to communicate with you. Do not conduct any deliberations. See you back in 15 minutes. Mr. Fung, 15 minutes. All right, let the record reflect we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Mr. Fung is presently on the witness stand undergoing cross-examination by Mr. Scheck. Good afternoon again, Mr. Fung. You're reminded you're still under oath, sir. And Mr. Scheck, you may continue with your cross-examination.
Mr. Fung, you mentioned just before we broke that when you're filling out your item description form, you only will fill in the time of collection when you think it's relevant. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Now, is there anything in particular that would make you realize at the moment that you're collecting the item that later on down the line, the time of the collection was going to be relevant?
It is my general practice, my personal general practice, to write down the time when it is outside the time frame of my actual collection. If I, for instance, went to a crime scene at 8 o'clock and left at 12, if there was additional evidence which somehow was given to me by a detective or something like that, I would then write down the time frame.
Well, why don't we look at one of these forms? Your Honor, I'd like to mark the original, but let me establish this. The notes that you make, the original notes that you make on your field checklists, what happens to them?
In this case or in general?
In general.
In general, they're filed away in a file cabinet that stores these documents.
There's a rule at the Scientific Investigation Division that when you make out original notes, the original notes are to be stored in a particular place and preserved.
I don't know if it's a rule, but that's what happens.
In the field procedures manual? You're not familiar with any regulation that says that all original notes are to be preserved at the laboratory so others can look at them and get access?
I object because it assumes the fact not in evidence.
Sustained.
Are you
Foundation.
familiar,
Foundation.
are you familiar with a field procedures manual?
I know that one has been written, but it has not been put in effect.
Well, isn't there a field procedures manual that is in the truck that you go to crime scenes with?
I'm not aware of a procedures manual in the truck, no.
Are you saying, sir, that, are you aware of the existence of a document of 11 volumes entitled The Crime Scene Field Unit Protocol and Procedures Manual?
I have not been given that copy, no.
You've never seen such a document?
No.
And you have no knowledge as to whether or not such a document, such a manual, is actually required to be kept in your criminalistic truck for reference?
That's correct.
Well, moving back to your evidence collection sheets. There is an original set of documents, is that correct?
Yes,
All right. And you've reviewed the original set of documents in this case, have you not?
yes, I have.
Now, there's an original page that refers to the items that you collected at Bundy.
Could you,
Your Honor, I'd like this to be marked defense next in order. What? 1069.
1069. About marking an exhibit?
Well, the original.
All right. With the court order. All right, what was the next in order? 1069.
Your Honor, may I put page 1 of the two-page document 1069 on the Elmo?
Yes.
Maybe we could just, maybe it would be clearer if we go close on just top of the page. Okay. Now, Mr. Fung, this document that we have up in the Elmo is the original of the evidence collection report that you filled out for the item seized at Bundy. Is that correct?
It's a portion of it, yes.
All right. And calling your attention to the, just even the first item that refers to the set of keys. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, next to that, there's a box that we're referring to with the word "by" in it, correct?
Yes,
All right. And that was not filled out contemporaneously, was it?
that's correct.
It wasn't filled out at the time that it was collected.
That's right.
And then as you go down the page and you talk about the next item, the pager, that wasn't filled out either, was it?
Yes,
And as you go down the page, there was no notation whatsoever as to who collected which item.
that's correct.
All right. Now, I'd like to have this document marked as defendant's next in order. That would be 1070. Now, on this item is a copy of the evidence collection sheet from Bundy that you filled out with some additions before you came to court.
Yes,
And what you did is you reconstructed who collected what.
you mean reconstructed?
You filled in the box that has "by."
Yes.
All right? And when did you do that?
That was sometime after the crime scene had been done.
How many months?
Maybe 2 or 3.
And did you do this, was this your decision?
It had become an issue, and we decided to fill that in as best we could.
Who's the "we"?